Okay, this video will be covering drawing the brachial plexus. Additionally, this is going to cover I'm going to go through all of the structures, so I'll have this in my hand. We're going to go through all of the structures except for vagus cranial nerve 10 and accessory cranial nerve 11 off of the brachial plexus terms to know sheet. So as you draw through this, having this sheet out and handy can be very helpful. Okay. So I'm going to first start with just making sure that we have the divisions down for the brachial plexus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over here, and I'm just going to use an acronym to get us started so that we can create the divisions. Okay. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do an R, T, D, C, B. And as we go through this, what this is going to stand for, so I'll do the R. So, and before I get ahead of myself, let me tell you. So students over the years have come up with various things to help them remember this RTDCB. But, just a couple. Remember to drink cold beverages. If you're a country western fan, Randy Travis drinks cold beverages. So whatever suits you the best. Having this acronym down, RTDCB, is a good starting point as you begin to draw the brachial plexus and go through these terms on the terms list. It's a good place to start, and I'll show you why. So this first one, R, ventral rami. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with are the ventral rami. Then we will move into, I'll do my trunks in orange. I have a limited amount of color, so there will have to be a few repeats. So I'll do my trunks. So first up is ventral rami, then we're going to go into trunks. I'll do my trunks in green. I'll do my divisions. Back in red. Divisions. Maybe I'll do my anterior divisions in red. And maybe I'll do my posterior divisions, maybe in blue, posterior divisions. Chords, the chords I'll do in orange. Okay, so we have ventral rami, R, trunks, T, divisions, I'll do in red and blue, and then chords I'll do in orange, and then finally I'll do my branches back in blue. Branches back in blue. Okay. So the first place we're going to start. So if you look at your terms list, you'll see that at the very top, the first things we're going to have here are the ventral rami. So the first ones I'm going to put up here are, I'm going to do C3, C4 kind of small, and you'll see why. We're going to loop in the phrenic nerve. But then I'll have C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. Okay, so C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. These are all of the ventral rami of the typical spinal nerve that are coming out here that are going to be the origins of the brachial plexus, okay? And we're going to group in C3 and C4 just as we get started. So these ventral rami, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect C5 and C6. I'm going to connect C8 and T1. And I'm going to have C7 come out just like this because the ventral rami are going to come out, and that's what they're going to do. Okay, so after the ventral rami, we're going to move into the trunks. And so what we're going to have with the trunks, I'm just going to draw 3 straight lines, just like this. So the trunks are the connecting parts of the ventral rami, and on the trunks, you will notice on your term sheet we have a superior trunk, superior, middle, and inferior trunk. Inferior trunk. Okay, so we had our ventral rami and we're into our trunks. What I'm going to do now, so off of each trunk, what I'm going to draw next is we are going to have an anterior and a posterior division. So I'm going to do my anterior divisions in red. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of do that one up. I'm going to connect the anterior division of the middle trunk there. And then I'll kind of do this one just coming down just a hair. Good, we have plenty of camera space for that. And then what I'll do, I said I'll do the posterior divisions in blue. I'm going to have, I'll dot the posterior divisions as well. I'm going to have 3, so off of each trunk I have an anterior and a posterior division. So, and I'll go through and label these. I'll try to stay out of the way. So this is the posterior division of the inferior trunk, posterior division of the middle trunk, and this top one I'll do posterior division of the superior trunk. I'll get my red again. So this is the anterior division of the superior trunk. This is the anterior division of the middle trunk and the anterior division of the inferior trunk. Okay, so thus far we've covered the ventral rami, the trunks, and the divisions. Now you'll see what's coming next. You'll see what's coming next, and this is why this RTDCB is so helpful, because we just covered divisions. So the thing that's coming next is going to be our chords. Off of each of these divisions, we're going to have chords. That shows up okay. So on the chords, what we're going to have here is we're going to have 3 different chords. The anterior division of the superior trunk and the anterior division of the middle trunk is going to make the lateral, that's kind of has a little bit of a glare. This is the lateral chord. This one that comes from the posterior division of the superior trunk, middle trunk, and inferior trunk, is the posterior chord. Posterior chord. And this bottom one, so we had a lateral, and so over here we're going to have the medial chord in orange. Okay, so we have a lateral chord, a posterior chord, and a medial chord. Now, with all of those done, so with our ventral rami in, our trunks in, our anterior and posterior divisions, and our chords in, what we come to finally are the branches. So if you've been kind of following along or drawing along as we've gone through, you'll notice that we covered a fair amount of the structures on this terms list, but we have a fair amount more to go, because off of all of these, we're going to have the branches. Okay? So what I like to do myself, just because otherwise I miss them, I like to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a 5th. So I like to start with the 5 that don't come off of the chords, because they help me remember to get them done. Otherwise, I often forget them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the dorsal scapular first. So off of this C5 ventral rami, we're going to have 1 branch, and I'll put this in, dorsal scapular. So I put that there. One nice thing that I really like about nerves as we get into the nerves unit and we start rolling through these, if you listen to the names of most of these nerves, they'll tell you where they go or the muscles that they innervate, which is really nice. Dorsal scapular, guess where that goes? To the dorsal side or the back in the scapular region. Really, really nice. Okay, so there's the first one. Next up that I'm going to cover is off of this superior trunk, I'm going to have one that comes down. This is the nerve to subclavius. I bet you'll never guess where that goes to. Nerve to subclavius. Okay. What I'm going to do next, on my terms list is I am going to cover off of this superior trunk, right where the anterior division and the posterior division meet, so where those start to come off, we're going to have 1 branch right there. It's usually right at that same spot, and this nerve, this branch, is going to be called the suprascapular nerve, dorsal scapular nerve, nerve to subclavius. Okay, so suprascapular off of that same anterior division and posterior division of the superior trunk. Okay, and the last 2 that I'm going to hit. So we put C3 and C4 in here. You're about to find out why. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a line. Let me erase this dorsal scapular just a little bit. I'm going to move dorsal scapular over just a hair. I'm going to have a line that comes down like this. So C3, C4, C5. So 3, 4, 5 leads us to the phrenic nerve. Okay, so that's the phrenic nerve. And then 5, so at 5 I'm going to draw a line down like this. 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 5, 6, 7 is going to lead us to our long thoracic nerve. Okay, so these are the 5 nerves that I typically put in first so I don't forget them. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, phrenic, 5, 6, 7, long thoracic, off of the C5 ventral ramus, dorsoscapular, superior trunk, nerve to subclavius, and then right at the division, suprascapular. Okay. One additional note, students across time, they've given me some ways to help remember phrenic nerve. 3, 4, 5, stay alive, because if you know anything about the phrenic nerve, you'll know that it innervates the diaphragm. And so in order for us to stay alive, we need to breathe. So 3, 4, 5, stay alive. 5, 6, 7 on the side, because long thoracic is going to go and innervate serratus anterior. So 5, 6, 7 on the side, serratus anterior right here. Okay? So those are the 5 nerves that are not coming off of a cord, so I like to do those first just so I get those done. Now, with that done, we're going to move down here to the branches that come from the cords. So the first one I'm going to do off of this lateral cord, I'm going to draw a line, and I'll kind of dash it through here just so I want it to come all the way down. You'll see why in just a moment. So this one that I drew, I'll label it down here, and I think this should get on. Lateral pectoral nerve. Lateral pectoral nerve there. Off the end of this lateral cord, we are going to have, I'll kind of make it long like that. We're going to have one branch that goes this way, and we're going to have another branch that goes up this way. Okay, so this branch that's coming down here, I'll just do lateral cord for right now. So this is the lateral contribution to the median nerve. I'll abbreviate that there. Lateral contribution to the median nerve. Because what eventually is going to happen is the median nerve is going to come off of that contribution. So at this division, we have lateral contribution to the median nerve. That means this branch up here is going to be the musculocutaneous nerve. And I'll make that a little longer. Musculocutaneous nerve there. Now you'll notice there's a little subheading. Off of this musculocutaneous nerve, we actually have another branch, and it's called the lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. So we have lateral cord, musculocutaneous, lateral contribution to the median, off of musculocutaneous, lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Now I want you to pause for a moment. If your directional terminology is fairly solid, you actually learn a tremendous amount about this nerve. Listen to the name, lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. This tells you where the nerve is and what it's innervating. Okay? Lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Okay? And that finishes up the nerves off of the lateral cord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip down. I'm going to do the medial cord next just so I can wrap that up, and then I'll move into the posterior cord last. Okay? So off of this medial cord, I'm going to kind of shimmy down here. Off of this medial cord, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have 2 branches that come right off of the medial cord like so. And what we have here, I think you can probably see this. So these first 2, so we have the medial brachial cutaneous nerve, MBC nerve, right there, medial brachial cutaneous, and medial antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Again, listen to the names there. Don't get so caught up that you get lost. Medial brachial cutaneous nerve, medial antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Okay, so right off of this medial cord, we're going to have 2 branches, medial brachial cutaneous, medial antebrachial cutaneous. Now, I drew lateral pectoral coming down. You're about to find out why. The next branch that I'm going to be having come off of this medial cord is I'm going to have a branch right here. And this one is the medial. We had a lateral pectoral nerve, so guess what this one is? Medial pectoral nerve. Now, between these 2, I'm going to just put that in here, and I'll kind of draw it up here. This is the communicans. So the medial pectoral and lateral pectoral innervate pectoralis major and pectoralis minor. And so we need to have some communication between the two so that when we contract, we have scapular stabilization, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a communicans in between the medial and lateral pectoral, which is why I always draw lateral pectoral coming down to help remind me we have this communicans between them so that medial pectoral and lateral pectoral have some type of a connection. Okay? And then finally what we're going to have is very similar to the lateral cord up here. We're at this terminal end of the medial cord, we're going to have a division. We're going to have a division that comes up and meets the lateral contribution, and then we'll have a branch that goes down here. Okay? So on this top side, we had musculocutaneous and lateral contribution to the median nerve. On this medial cord, we have medial contribution to the median nerve. Medial contribution to the median nerve. Medial contribution to the median nerve. And these two together are going to make this final nerve out here, which is the median, you guessed it, median nerve, because we're contributing to the median nerve. This one is the median nerve. Okay? So finally, to finish up medial cord, we had this medial contribution to the median nerve. On this other terminal side, this one makes up the ulnar nerve. And you can see that there. Okay? So ulnar nerve. Medial contribution to the median nerve, ulnar nerve. I put in median nerve off of these lateral medial contributions to the median. Okay? Hopefully you're still hanging in there. We have one last cord to go. One last cord to go, and that's this posterior cord. That's this posterior cord. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip back over to this side. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw 3 branches like this. And I'm going to have one of the branches be longer than the other because anatomically it actually makes sense to do it. I know that, depending on how much we're able to get on the cadavers, this will actually make sense. But this first one, we're going to have upper subscapular nerve, upper subscapular. If we have an upper, we're going to have a lower, and I skip this kind of longer branch right here, lower subscapular nerve. And in the middle of these two, because anatomically in cadavers, we always have this one nerve that divides the upper and lower subscapulars, and it's longer than the other two. So this one is the thoracodorsal nerve. Okay, so I just put in 3 nerves off the posterior cord. Upper subscapular, lower subscapular, and a thoracodorsal right in the middle. Off of the top side of this posterior cord, let's think about how I want to do this here. Off of this top side, what I'm going to do just in between this posterior cord, I'm just going to draw a branch like this, coming right between there. So this top one is going to be the axillary nerve. If you're good with your directional terms and your anatomical terms, you know a lot about that axillary nerve, right where it's running. Okay? And if you don't, hopefully we can learn. Okay, so axillary, and then we are also, you're going to see on your sheet that this is one of the ones that has a subheading. Off of this axillary, I'll do a branch like that. This axillary, so you'll notice we have a medial antebrachial cutaneous, medial brachial cutaneous. We have a lateral antebrachial cutaneous. We're currently missing a important one, and off of the axillary is going to be the lateral brachial cutaneous nerve, LBC, lateral brachial cutaneous nerve. So now as we come down on this posterior cord, I'm going to do a branch like this. So the posterior cord becomes the radial nerve. The posterior cord becomes the radial nerve. And off of this radial nerve, we're going to have 4 branches. And I'll do them like this. So off of this radial nerve, we're going to have a posterior brachial cutaneous nerve, posterior brachial cutaneous nerve, posterior antebrachial cutaneous nerve, so PBCN, PA, BC, and posterior antebrachial cutaneous nerve. And then finally, this radial nerve, it divides into a deep radial nerve and superficial radial nerve. Okay? So one more time, we had the axillary nerve, and it becomes the lateral brachial cutaneous after it provides its muscular innervation. The posterior cord becomes the radial nerve, and then off of the radial nerve we'll have these 4 branches. One more time, posterior brachial cutaneous, posterior antebrachial cutaneous, deep radial, and superficial radial. So that should wrap up all of the terms. As I quickly scan through, that should wrap up all of the terms that you will need for the brachial plexus and how to draw them. I encourage you before the first day of class to go through and draw this 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Being able to draw this will be tremendously helpful as we move into nerves. If you can have this down, I know at the end it starts to get kind of busy. But there is a flow and an order to this, and as we add the muscles that are innervated by each of these nerves, you will be so appreciative if you're able to draw this and understand the flow as you move from ventral rami into branches. Okay? So that finishes this video on how to draw the brachial plexus.